What is up, Insaners, and welcome to another video of the Fantasy Premier League 2022-23 season. In this one, guys, we'll talk about our team selection for Game Week 1. We'll start with the defense first, guys. In defense, we have the top two highest scorers of last season. We have Trent and Cancelo. Both are really good picks, guys. Of course, they're template picks. They are owned by a lot of people. But of course, there's a reason that they're owned by so many managers. I think they're going to do really well. I think you should have both of them in your team. And they're pretty much locked into my squad for Game Week 1. Both are pretty much nailed when we talk about their position in the starting 11, guys. I think they're going to get a lot of minutes. They both look very attacking. They're creative as well. And of course, they can score an odd goal. So I think there's a lot of potential with both picks. And I think they're pretty much locked, as I said before. Coming to the third pick, guys, we've gone for Robertson as our third defender. We've gone for a Liverpool double up in defense rather than going for Diaz in midfield. Now, I know there's a huge debate in terms of which player to go for, whether you should go for Robertson as a double up in the Liverpool defense or you should probably go for Diaz. Guys, I don't think so. There's a very clear-cut answer. But whatever we've seen so far, of course, we cannot really give a lot of attention to the Community Shield game. But Robertson's position was quite interesting. It was quite attacking. He was playing well advanced, and that really spells good from an FPL perspective. Now, of course, you can also go for Diaz, and we'll talk about midfielders a little later. But I think the Robertson double up with Trent is a very powerful one. He's of course gonna get those extra clean sheet points which a Diaz might not get. And yes, he's $1 million cheaper as well. I think that could be very crucial when we are investing money in midfield, maybe even defenders or even attackers, when we are looking to get those additional funds to make certain upgrades. So in the end, I think Robertson is a very good pick to go for. Of course, you can go for other picks as well. If you see the draft, we have not gone for James here. So if you want to downgrade that Robertson money to a James, I think that also is a good thing to go for. But I think for my own team, I really like Robertson's attacking potential. I like the FPL potential overall. And I think he's a good double up to go for. The early fixtures for both Robertson and Trent are really good, guys. There are possible clean sheet points on the table. And I think you should definitely go for both of them if you like that Liverpool defense. As you can see, guys, we've gone for a back four and we have Perisic from Tottenham, who could be a tricky pick after all. Now, I'm not saying that he's probably not going to start. Of course, there are possibilities that he can start the game. He can probably play 60 to 70 minutes before getting subbed off. I think that is where the risk element, the expected minutes kind of come into picture. I'm expecting Perisic to play a huge role for Tottenham this season, guys. I think he's going to be very attacking. I mean, we all know his attacking potential. He can score goals. He can assist as well. And of course, when you couple that with clean sheet points, I think that spells a lot of FPL points to go for. The only worry with him is probably the minutes where he might not start. So if we get some inkling in terms of if he's not starting, then we have some contingency plans that we'll talk about later. But right now, I guess, guys, for the early fixtures, for the first few game weeks, I think Perisic looks really good. I think Conte would want to play him some games, would want to build his match fitness. And I think there's a possibility that we can sneak in some crazy FPL points from Perisic. Of course, we also have Ramsdale in goal, guys. I know a lot of people have gone for 4.5 million keepers. There's a sudden rush of people going for Leicester options because Schmeichel is leaving and now there are two 4 million options available. But I just feel it's kind of a trap and we should probably not give a lot of attention to it. I still have Ward on my bench. Now there's a chance that he might start for Leicester, but then again, they can even sign a new keeper. So I'm not going there. I think it's okay to invest that additional 0.5, maybe even $1 million in somebody like a Ramsdale who's playing from premium defense. I think the first two fixtures for Arsenal are somewhat tricky from a clean sheet perspective. But then when you see the long-term picture, I think Ramsdale should get in clean sheet points. We know that he can make saves. And along with that also comes bonus points, guys. And I think overall package, the overall picture that Ramsdale gives us is pretty promising. I think he's the best 5 million option to go for, even better than Mendy, especially when Chelsea are having all those troubles in defense. Now coming to midfield, guys, we've gone for Mo Salah as the most premium option in midfield. I think he's going to be a very popular pick. I mean, he's already a great FPL asset. He's going to be the most captained option in Game Week 1 as well. And I think it's a huge risk not to go with Salah in Game Week 1 or even beyond because he's definitely going to do a lot of damage to your rank. He's also my captaincy option, guys. He is my captain for Game Week 1. I think I'm pretty set there. Now in other options, we've gone for Saka, guys. We've gone for that 8 million midfield spot because I think it is okay for the structure. I mean, you can still get an 8 million midfield option a little later on when you have some data, when you have some game weeks under the belt. But I think going for Saka, especially considering his form and the possibility that he might be on penalties. I mean, of course, it's not sure that he would be on penalties. In terms of the last few penalties that Arsenal have got, I think whosoever has got it has taken those penalties. But I think Arsenal should still give those penalties to Saka. At least I'm hoping for that from an FPL perspective. And I think Saka is a great pick at 8 million. Now, there's a very popular conversation floating in the FPL community where there's a possibility that we could go for somebody like a Martinelli who's 2 million cheaper. And yes, it is a meaningful conversation to have, guys, because you can do a lot of things with those 2 million. But I think Arsenal's Saka is still the better option to go for. There's a slight chance that Martinelli might share minutes with Nketiah, and that we've seen especially in the preseason where Nketiah has played on the left wing, and that is where Martinelli plays, guys. Yes, Emil Smith Rowe right now is injured, and there are chances that when he comes back, he can also fight for that spot. So I'm a little worried that that's a transfer waiting to happen maybe sometime in the future, and we'll probably just avoid that. Keep that 8 million spot because there are some really good options to go for in that 8 million, guys. If we feel that Arsenal Saka is a lot of money in that 8 million price bracket, we can even go for somebody like a Mason Mount, even Maddison when the fixtures are good. Of course, we can also go for Man City midfielders like a Foden, maybe even a Mahrez, if we know and understand which one is starting for Man City and which one should be a good FPL option. So I think there are a lot of ways to kind of look at this, and I think having that 8 million spot really solidifies our position to start with Saka and then kind of continue with whatever we see, whatever information we get, and then make those changes. In terms of the other options in midfield, guys, we've gone for Neto and Bailey. Now, I think both of them are decent options in isolation, but I think it's a bit risky to go for both in a particular draft. Yes, Neto is slightly preferred to Bailey because he's maybe a bit more nailed. I'm not saying that he plays for a better attack. I mean, there's absolutely no chance that Wolves is a better attack than Aston Villa. But Aston Villa, again, they have two decent fixtures, and game week 3 and 4 is a bit iffy, and then is when the fixtures get a bit tricky. So it's again a transfer waiting to happen, and I think there are options in that 5 million price bracket. I mean, of course, you have somebody like a Rodrigo who's been really good for Leeds. You also have Dewsbury Hall, who's been on fire for Leicester City. So I mean, there are options. Of course, you have Almiron as well, who's been absolutely crazy in preseason. Now, whether he's gonna turn those into FPL points in the actual season, we'll have to wait and watch. I think a couple of game weeks should give us some idea. I mean, if Bailey's not playing well, if he's probably lost his place in the starting 11, provided that he starts in the first 2 games, I think we can take that data into picture. We can take all of that information and then make those calls from game week 3 onwards. So till game week 3, guys, I think Neto and Bailey both are decent options. I mean, Neto is having great fixtures, much better than what Bailey has. And I think with the Jimenez injury, I know there's a lot of conversation that with Jimenez being injured, his FPL potential is probably hindered. I mean, he might not do that well. There's a case to be made there, but I still feel, personally, I feel that it makes Neto more nailed, and he could be doing really well from an FPL perspective. Of course, with that caveat that Wolves aren't really a high-scoring team, and we'll still have to see how Wolves turn up for the new FPL season, for the new Premier League season. Now let's talk about our forwards, guys. We've gone for a 2 up top with Haaland and Jesus, guys. Jesus is the most popular player of FPL at the moment. I mean, his ownership is absolutely crazy. I think it's even crossed more than 70%, and either we're all gonna fail, or it's just that we've got a premium asset, maybe for a premium attack at a very low price, and FPL has just committed a huge blunder. But I think Jesus is going to do well. I mean, he's had a great preseason. He's been absolutely on fire, and I don't think so Nketiah is probably going to take off minutes from him. The other pick that we have is Haaland, guys. I mean, I thought about it a lot in terms of which one to go for, whether I should go for Haaland or whether I should go for Kane. I think I was early on Kane in terms of making that transfer, making that switch in game week 2. But then again, there are a lot of possible scenarios, there are a lot of situations that can arise in game week 1. And if, let's say, somebody like a Haaland maybe scores, maybe somebody like a Kane, for example, if he scores, now in that situation, and let's say Haaland blanks, for example, so in that situation, do I make that switch? I think I'm just going to save that trouble. I'm not going to get into that dilemma, and I'm going to get Haaland from game week 1. I'm going to save that transfer because I really want Haaland in game week 2 for that Bournemouth game, guys. I think Bournemouth are going to struggle in defense. They are going to concede a lot of goals, and I think Haaland is a great captaincy option as well for game week 2. Now, I know that Haaland is comparatively new. I mean, he's absolutely new to the Man City setup. They aren't even used to playing with a proper number 9, and I think it's going to take some time but I think I can possibly see it for a couple of weeks, maybe till game week 2. And if I see Kane really going absolutely crazy and Haaland probably not fitting into the Man City system just yet, maybe then I can make that switch. But I think I would want to get that information, get that data available to me before making that call. And I'll probably just save this transfer, considering that there could be other problems that I'll probably have to face in game week 2 or 3. I'm not all saying that Kane is a bad pick, guys. He's in fact a slight differential as well when we see his ownership. Of course, he's a differential captain option as well. I'm not going to go there, and we'll discuss captaincy in a bit. But I think having Haaland gives me that flexibility because I'm trying to save that transfer in game week 2. I'm kind of fairly in that camp of saving that transfer, getting more information, and maybe having 2 free transfers in game week 3, maybe even taking a hit with a -4, that could act as a mini wildcard, guys. And of course, there will be certain bandwagons to kind of catch on or get onto, and I want to give myself that flexibility. Now, very quickly talking about the bench, guys, I mean, there's nothing much to talk about in terms of the bench, but in my case, I am playing with 4 defenders, and my 5th defender is a 4 million option. I think Nico Williams is probably going to start majority games for Forest. He's looked quite attacking. I mean, he has creative potential. He can get assists. So I think it's a good option. The other 2 options are Pereira and Planche, guys. I mean, I hope I've got that name right. I keep mispronouncing that name. But I think both of them, I mean, I'm not really sure about Planche. I think he might not get minutes, but I think I'm quite confident that Pereira is probably going to get some starts early on. He could play in that number 10 role for Fulham. I mean, we've seen in preseason that he is attacking. He can get assists. So I think he could be a gem of a pick in that 4.5 million price bracket in midfield, where we don't really have a lot of options. So guys, this was my team for game week 1. Now there are a couple of situations, couple of picks that I'm not very confident of. I mean, I have Perisic in my team, and let's say if I get some information about Perisic not starting in the Conte press conference, I think I can possibly change him, maybe switch around, maybe get a 5. I mean, there are 2 routes that I can kind of take or move towards. The number 1 route is that I can downgrade Perisic to a Gabriel, for example, have that Arsenal defender, because I think Gabriel is a decent pick to go for. He has some aerial threat. He's gonna get those Arsenal clean sheet points as well. And I think I can maybe downgrade Ramsdale to a 4.5 million keeper in that case, because of course I can't have 4 players from Arsenal. That is absolutely one way to look at it, guys. Now making that downgrade from Ramsdale to a 4.5 million keeper, guys, that's gonna give me an additional 0.5, which then I can possibly invest in maybe trying to get to somebody like a Martinelli, for example. I can downgrade Saka to a Martinelli, or I can just upgrade maybe Neto to a Martinelli, have Bailey as an option, which is a bit risky, but then again, in that 8 million spot, I can play around. I can have somebody like a Mount, for example, who could be an underrated pick. I mean, he's absolutely an underrated pick, at least at the start of the FPL season, and then I think I can make those changes around. The other possibility is that if we don't get any information on Perisic, guys, I think I'm going to play with him. I'm going to start him. And let's see what happens in a couple of weeks. If we get information, if we get an idea that he's probably not fit enough to start games, and then in that case, we can possibly switch him around and then go for some alternate picks. There's also a possibility of downgrading Ramsdale to a 4.5 million keeper and then not going for somebody like a Gabriel. Like, for example, guys, we can also go for somebody like a Reece James, who looks pretty much set in that Chelsea lineup, guys. I think his place is pretty much nailed. Now the only question is that whether he's going to play as a right centre back or as a right wing back. But if he plays as a right wing back, guys, in spite of Chelsea having all those difficulties in defense, I think there's a lot of attacking potential in James, which we saw last season, and he can absolutely go crazy and give us a lot of FPL points. So what do you think about this team, guys? What is your team for game week 1? Do let me know in the comments below. Now let's talk about captaincy, guys. I think there's not much of a debate in terms of which option to go for. I think Mo Salah is the far better option to go for. I think his ownership is probably going to be 170, 180%. And if you don't have him as your captain, and if he does really well, guys, I think there's already a lot of catching up for you to do. In any case, of course, we'll talk about possibilities. We'll talk about certain options. If you don't want to go for Mo Salah, guys, you can also go for one of the Tottenham attackers. I think Harry Kane looks like the better option to go for against Southampton. We've seen his potential against slightly weaker oppositions. I think of course, there's a lot of conversation in terms of whether he starts the season slowly, he doesn't score in August and all of that stuff. But leaving all of that noise aside, guys, I think there's a huge potential for Kane to do well, maybe even do better than somebody like a Salah, maybe even a Haaland, for example. And if you just want to take a slight chance, slight risk, which I, of course, do not recommend, you can possibly go for Harry Kane against Southampton. The other option is to go for somebody like a Son. Let's say if you don't have a Harry Kane, if you have a second premium, maybe even a third premium as a Heung-min Son, guys, you can absolutely go for him as well. He's also looked pretty sharp in preseason. He's combining well with Kane, and we of course know what Son can do. He's one of the most underrated picks in FPL in general. And I mean, he generally has to do a lot to convince us to take him into our FPL teams, guys. And I think he's still a good option to go for. But I personally won't recommend him. If you really want to go for some option or some other alternate differential option, I think Harry Kane is the one to go for. But of course, if you have Son, you can take a chance and bet on him as well. Now guys, in case you don't have Harry Kane or Heung-min Son and you have somebody like a Haaland, for example, I know it's a tricky fixture. I know West Ham is not an easy opposition. Of course, Haaland missed all those chances in the Community Shield. I personally don't really recommend you to give a lot of attention to that because he's still easing into that Man City setup. Of course, he looked a bit rusty, but he's only gonna get better, guys. I have no doubts in terms of him probably smashing this year in FPL in Premier League, guys. So you could go for him, but I think it's a bit of a big risk in terms of going for Haaland against West Ham, guys. There are better options, and you of course have Salah to go for. So I'll personally not recommend. But again, if you want to go differential, if you want to try something else, then Haaland is also a part of the conversation. The last option is Gabriel Jesus, guys. If you don't have a premium option, let's say if you just have Salah, maybe you don't want to go Salah, you want to bet against the template, and you don't have the likes of Kane, Haaland, maybe even Son, for example, then you can go for Gabriel Jesus. The fixture against Crystal Palace, it's an away fixture. It might not be a very straightforward, easy game for Arsenal. But again, guys, he's looked in absolutely crazy form. He can absolutely smash it against Crystal Palace. So you can go for him. You can double up that advantage. I mean, you're not really going to get a lot of advantage if you have him in your team. But of course, there's a chance that you can captain him. You can get some extra advantage with those captaincy points. And you could go that route. But then again, I strongly believe that Salah is the best option to go for. That'll be all from my side from this video, guys. Do let me know in the comments below in terms of which players are you going for. Is your team set? Who's probably your captaincy option? Are you going differential, or maybe are you going just safe with Mo Salah? Please make sure to subscribe to the channel if you liked what you see today, guys. Hit the like button as well. It really helps us with the YouTube algorithm. Of course, you can stay with us. You can follow our team on Instagram as well. There are daily updates in terms of FPL content on Instagram channel as well. And yes, you can also join the mini league that we are running. There are a lot of prizes to be won. There will be some announcement on Instagram very soon regarding that. But make sure that you join our league. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. All the best for Game Week 1. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in Saners next time.